Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about a couple tips on how to build a bicycle toolkit. Most of the tools in here are just normal tools that you can get in any mechanics toolkit or something you might already own. Some of it is specialized. One of the main things you're paying for, and I think makes this toolkit worth it, is in addition to the toolbox, you also get the bike repair book. It's like almost anything you can imagine bike maintenance related in that book. The top of the toolbox has a couple small storage compartments. Stuff that I keep in here obviously needs to fit in here, but chain lock ring sockets, a couple different sizes, as well as crankset removal tools. And then park tools, hex driver assortment. It's not as easy to use as like a full set of T-handles, but also takes a lot less space. So it can come in handy in a pinch. Also the tire lever, there's 3 of them for removing and remounting tires to the rim. Just a flashlight might probably be useful, maybe like a clip-on magnetic light. Can't tell from that, but it's magnetic. Little carabiner's not too useful, but you could potentially mount this to something and light up whatever you're working on. If you don't have another way of lighting and you need both your hands to be free. Needle nose pliers. If you could tell, I'm using a lot of Cobalt branded stuff that isn't Park Tools. This does not come in the kit, but the colors, if you care about matching, colors match because the Park Tool stuff is a very similar color. So this is Park Tool, just number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Their brand of bike grease. It's kind of like a more heavyweight grease, and then a lightweight oil. A 3-sided spoke wrench for tightening spokes. Just one 8mm hex, more common size. This is what's called a chain checker. It allows you to check the slack in the chain to figure out if your chain needs to be replaced or not. Not the easiest to use, but it is possible to store this on your bike and like middle of trail, re-airing up the tires. If you've repaired a hole with like a patch kit like this, the patch kit like that, then this gives you the capability of pumping the tire back up. It fits in the kit, so I just keep it in the kit when I'm not using it on the bike. This is just for cleaning the spokes, not the spokes, it's for cleaning stubborn dirt and rocks, mud out of the sprocket or the cassette. And then just a brush. This is what's called a master link set of pliers. So if you have a bike chain that has a master link, this is what you use to take off and reinstall the master link without it slipping from a set of needle nose pliers. Below that, just a small bottle of WD-40, not a lubricant, but helps maybe dry your bike out. A couple different chain breakers. This is the one that comes in the kit. This is just a spare one I had. If you don't have a master link and you need to take your chain off, this is the only other way to do it. This is a 3-way Torx wrench. It's got some of the common sizes, T10, 25, and 30. Next is a very high quality set of cable and housing cutters. Really sharp teeth, really beefy handles, comfortable to use. This is probably one of the nicer tools in the entire kit. I really like using it. It also has the ability to crimp on the back end, but important to have something that gives you a reliable straight cut anytime you're working with cables, so that you're less likely to deal with frayed cables and cut yourself with a sharp edge. Next is the chain wrench. So one end is a 15mm open-ended just wrench, and then on this end you can see there's just the free chain. If you don't know what this does, we'll talk a little bit about what each of the tools does here in a second once I have everything laid out. And then the last thing I keep in here is just a appropriately sized spare chain to replace. So we'll go back in the reverse order, talking a little bit more detail about what each of the tools does. This one I already kind of talked about, just the cable and housing cutter. It's a lot better cut than you'd get from something like that. A pair of wire cutters, much more heavy duty, and it's designed to cut all the way through. So not going to talk anymore about that one. After that, the chain tool. So to give you an example of the pedal wrench, typically you don't have a ton of clearance between the crank arm on a crank set and the pedal itself. So yes, you could get a crescent wrench that's any sort of open-ended box wrench in there, but typically they are too wide to fit without scratching. If you care about whatever graphics or paint is on the crank arm, you could get this to fit, but it's a lot easier to get this to fit because of how much thinner it is. So it's designed to just go on there and allow you to loosen the pedals from the crank arms. The other one that has the chain on it is designed to grab onto your cassette. So obviously this locks up like this. Actually, it'd probably be better to show you on an actual cassette. So you need to wrap the chain around one of the teeth, or the teeth on one of the gears, and then you pull in one direction while you line this tool up the other side. And this allows you to loosen, as you see the teeth down in there, allows you to line these teeth up to loosen this and remove, replace, install a new set of cassettes onto your bike. This chain has a master link. You can tell from looking through the box, one end is a little bit bigger than the other, so once the teeth, these two master links, are spread apart, it allows you to get into the bigger portion of that slightly oval shaped opening to get the chain to break, instead of having to push one of these pivot points all the way through like you would have to do with one of these chain breaker tools. The 8mm L-shaped hex wrench is pretty self-explanatory. For the WD-40, you guys know what this is. You could use it as a lubricant. It's not really designed for that. You can read the uses here on the bottle. Typically what I use it for is after I've cleaned the bike, if I want to ensure to get all of the water out and help prevent rust from forming. The WD and WD-40 stands for water displacing, so that's what it's technically designed for, is displacing water. The chain checker, I'll show you on the actual bike. It'll make a little more sense if I can show you how it works. This is just a simple little tire repair kit. So some of the stuff in here is just a spare set of tire levers, tire patch stickers, or tube patch stickers. This is a tread depth tool. Show you where it recommends you replace your tread. Also a valve stem removal tool. Tire pressure gauge. Some caps for your valve stems. A couple replacement valves down in there. And then this is a metal scuffer. Apparently you're supposed to use that to rough up the rubber on your tire or your inner tube in order to get the sticker to stick a little bit better. The way this chain checker works is it's designed to show you if your chain's worn out and needs to be replaced because it has too much slack between the links. So you line up the appropriate end into one of the gaps in the chain like that, and then if the tool fits, you have to read off of either end, figure out which size to use, but if the chain were to fit, or the chain tool were to fit in this gap, then it's time for you to replace the chain. And then show you real quickly with the cassette brush, these teeth are designed to go in here, clean dirt, rocks, sand out of in between the gears, and then you can use this really to brush anything, but it's designed to get down in there. And the freewheels. All bikes are a little bit different, but a lot of times the main tool you need to remove things from a bike are hex head bits. So showing you here the little fender or carrying saddle attachment point is a hex head. The two different places to mount a pair of water bottle cages are hex head. A little cap on the end of the pedals are hex. If you were to replace the little pegs on the pedals themselves, those are hex head. These are hex. These are hex. Hex. Those are Torx, so that would need a different tool, but this is hex. A lot of the stuff up on the seat is all hex head. This is so you adjust the angle and the position of the seat in relation to the valve or the seat post. This is a quick release. A lot of times that's designed so you can just use your finger to loosen it and adjust the seat. Same with removing the wheels. A lot of times those are quick release levers. I'll show you those in a second. Up here on the handlebars, up here is hex. These are all hex. Up here in the front, that's hex. Everything with the shifter, besides this is like a fancy Torx, but for tightening, loosening, removing, replacing all your brake levers, whether it's the stock cable brakes or aftermarket hydraulic brakes, everything is all hex. If you ever need to replace your brakes, whether that's the cable or the actual handle, the little clips that help you route the brake lines, those are hex. Replacing the brake rotors, those are hex head. These are the quick release levers. I'm sure you know how to use them, but it does not require any tools. Everything here on the pedals, once again, is hex. This is one tool, the external bearing, for pretty common on nicer bikes. That's one tool that you might have to buy that's not included in the kit. For the brakes, if you need to remove the caliper, both of these screws or these bolts are hex head. If you need to bleed the brakes, that's hex. If you need to replace the pads, at least in this style, just remove this pin and then you can slide the pads off once you've removed the caliper. You probably don't need to rebuild the caliper. If you did, that's where you'd have to use those Torx head bolts. But you can see, basically, you could take this entire bike apart just using hex bolts, hex wrenches. And the last thing to talk about is just if you have a way of checking if the wheel is true or not. So if the wheel's moving left to right inside of the in between the forks, or if it's not straight from top to bottom. If you have a wheel truing stand, that's where you'd use something like this, the spoke wrench. You can see on here that it just lines up with the spokes and you can tighten or loosen as required. So like I showed you, all the tools here will do the vast majority of tasks that you need to do in order to take a bike apart or reassemble a bike. You can add things like ratchet sets with sockets and various other types of pliers or wrenches. A bigger assortment of Torx and hex heads, both metric and standard. Not a whole lot of use for wrenches like this, but if you have space, I suppose you could keep it in there. These could definitely come in useful. They're called hex driver socket sets. If you can't get enough torque with either your T-handle hex keys or your L-shaped, it's probably unlikely that you're not going to have enough torque with how long this is, but if that's not long enough, pairing this or like these with a ratchet could be make your job a little quicker, give you a little bit more leverage, and you can also add extensions. So that might be something that would be worth keeping in the toolkit. Obviously the cobalt stuff matches color-wise if you care. And then I think this is maybe new for this year. I hadn't seen it before. A four-way folding screwdriver set. So you can tell it's a little bit bigger than a lot of these normal sized, or even the Park Tool one, but it has a lot more. We've got flathead, Phillips, Torx, and more Torx. So that might be useful.